Good evening. Welcome to our Pullman City Council meeting for this Tuesday, October 15th. And first of all, roll call. Dee?
Mayor Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Chapman.
Present.
Councilmember McCall. Here. Councilmember Parks. Here. Councilmember Records.
Here.
Councilmember Sorensen.
Here.
Councilmember Weller.
Present.
Councilmember Wright.
Wright notified us that she could not be here tonight. Do I hear a motion to excuse?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Under announcements tonight, we have a number of them. Don't miss Pullman's Fresh to You Farmers Market, the last of the season, tomorrow, from 3:30 to 6:30 at the Brailsford WSU Visitor Center at the corner of East Main and East Spring Street. You can plan ahead for the Veterans Day concert at the Community Band of the Palouse for Sunday, November 10th, from 2 to 5 p.m. at the Domi Auditorium at Gladish Community Center. Donations of non-perishable food or monetary donations gladly accepted. The band will honor the 100th anniversary of the American Legion and recognize the local Maynard Price Post 52 and WSU student veterans. Chilly weather means that we're moving quickly towards the holiday season, so you can mark your calendars for the Pullman Senior Center Holiday Bazaar fundraiser on Wednesday and Thursday, November 13th and 14th. Lunch both days will be served from 11 a.m. to 1:30, and you'll find gift items, handicraft, baked goods, and used book sales and more. A number of proclamations this week. One of them was for yesterday, for Monday, the Indigenous Peoples Day. We did this for the City Council, so we had that as a proclamation. Also, the United States Congress designated October as National Disabilities Employment Awareness Month in an effort to educate the American public about issues related to disability and employment. And whereas this observance recognizes Americans with disabilities who are a vital part of our nation's workforce or who are preparing to enter the workforce, and whereas workplaces that welcome the talents of all people, including people with disabilities, are crucial to building an inclusive community and strong economy. And whereas the theme, The Right Talent Right Now, celebrates the many and varied contributions of people with disabilities and reinforces the value and talents of these people that they add to our workplace and our community. Therefore, I, Glenn Johnson, the mayor of the city of Pullman, declare October 2019 to be Disability Employment Awareness Month. Encourage businesses and residents in the city of Pullman to advance the message that people with disabilities are equal to the task, to look beyond disabilities, to see each person as a unique and valuable individual, and to recognize that success in work and life knows no limitations. Also, we had a proclamation for Family Promise of the Palouse. They began their operations in October 2013, dedicated to helping the most vulnerable among us, children and families who are temporarily homeless. And whereas Family Promise supports numerous congregations of our area faith community, which provide for facilities to house and feed guest families, thereby making a real difference in the lives of our neighbors in need. And whereas believing that every child deserves a home, Family Promise of the Palouse and its more than 700 volunteers empowers families to make their transition from homeless to sustainable independence. And therefore, Glenn Johnson, the mayor of the city of Pullman, hereby proclaim the week of October 20th to 26th to be Family Promise Week. So those are the proclamations. Now with that, we're going to start with Gary Jenkins, our police chief, for a number of awards here tonight.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I will be presenting some life-saving awards tonight to 7 different staff members involved in 4 different incidents. And so I'll bring them up one incident at a time until we have everyone here, and then I'll present their awards. So let's start with Sergeant Aaron Brashears and Officers Mike Sottgrath and Reuben Harris. If you guys can just stand here. On February 26, 2019, at about 11:40 p.m., you were dispatched with other officers to a possible suicidal subject who was reportedly despondent after losing his job. Upon arrival at the subject's residence, attempts to contact someone inside the residence were met with no response. Based on the information received, it was determined that the subject was in the residence and was possibly in distress. Using a garage door remote in the subject's vehicle, you gained entry into the house. The subject was found unconscious from an intentional overdose of drugs and alcohol. Officers called for medical aid, and the 28-year-old was transported by ambulance to Pullman Regional Hospital. Without your intervention, the subject would likely not have survived. Next, I'll call up Officer Brian Chamberlain and Officer Tiana McNanny. On February 27, 2019, at about 10:15 a.m., you were dispatched with other officers to a residential apartment on a possible overdose call. Upon arrival, there was no answer at the door, but officers could hear sounds of a female gasping for air. Officers subsequently forced entry to find a 21-year-old female convulsing on the floor. Believing the female had overdosed on an opioid, Officer McNanny and Chamberlain administered Narcan. The female was subsequently transported to Pullman Regional Hospital by ambulance. According to hospital medical staff, the Narcan likely saved her life. Next, I'll call up Record Specialist Kelly Smith. In the late hours of August 20th, 2019, Pullman officers booked a subject into the Pullman Police Department holding facility. As the on-duty record specialist, you monitored the subject within a cell via surveillance video feed. It was during this time that you noticed the subject on the floor with a blanket around his neck, attempting to hang himself. You took immediate action, messaging and alerting officers who were able to quickly respond and ensure the subject's safety. Next, Officer Nathan Patterday. In the early morning hours of September 1st, 2019, Pullman officers were dispatched to a suicidal subject who was on the phone with his parents threatening to jump off a bridge to end his life. The subject and parents were not Pullman residents, and the location of the subject was unknown. Pullman officers searched for the subject at all the bridges in Pullman but did not locate him. You continued your search and called the subject's mother to collect more information. During that call, you found a subject matching the given description on Main Street near the viaduct over Spring Street. Upon contact, the subject gave you a false name and denied being the suicidal subject you were looking for. However, you were able to determine that he was, in fact, the suicidal subject, and you subsequently took him into protective custody and transported him for a mental health evaluation. Without your intervention, the subject would likely have attempted suicide. So to all of you, it's with great pride that I present you the Pullman Police Department Life Saving Award. This award recognizes your actions that resulted in the saving or preservation of a human life that otherwise would have been lost without your direct action or involvement.
If the families would like to come up and take pictures, just come right on up. Don't sit there in your seats. Come on up. This is a special occasion. We are very proud of these officers. So please come up and take pictures.
This is the weirdest just look.
Everybody get a shot? Because they just love standing up here and smiling. Just want to make sure you know that. Okay?
Right. Thank you all. I'm very proud of you.
We're very proud of all of you, and thank you so much for your great service to this community. Thank you. And we do it early so the children and the parents can go home and take care of other things for the family.
It's going to be really quiet.
Oh, there goes a good heating source, I mean.
Well, next on the agenda tonight is a presentation on HB 1406. And we have the chair of the Whitman County Commissioners, Art Swanek, and Jeff Guyot, who's Executive Director of the Community Action Center here, to fill the council in on this particular measure and what it means, not only to the county, but to the city as well. So, Art, thank you very much for being here, and same thing, Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson, and thank you, Council, for inviting us. Quick summary, House Bill 1406 is the affordable and supportive housing tax and what it amounts to.
And we'll get the door closed here just in a second.
That's, if you'd like me to wait till they're
Yeah, let's do this.
done celebrating in the hallway.
Door's closing now, Art. Okay, there we go.
That's all good. That was very impressive. So HB 1406 was a bill passed this last legislative session, and what it does is it generates money for affordable and supportive housing through a refund to the county or city of a portion of the state's portion of sales tax. And I'm not going to say that 5 times fast because I'll get it messed up, but what it does is it brings local money back to the communities in order to work on the affordable and supportive housing issues. Whitman County chose to enact this tax, and we did that through a notice of intent to a resolution of intent to adopt the tax, and then we did it through a subsequent county code approval. So like, I don't know, you know about .09 money, the economic development money. It's the same type of system where you're getting that portion of state sales tax back to help work on local issues. The BOCC intends, if the rules let us, to award the money to and use the guidance of Community Action Center in determining the proper use of these affordable and supportive housing funds in our county. Commissioners do not intend to start our own affordable housing department. Part of that is really rather simple, basic math. There's about $113,000 estimated a year that would come in from this. There's no way we can start a bureaucracy to do that. Our role at this point in time will be to create an annual report for Department of Commerce on how the money is used. And we've put all of this under Gary Petrovich, our Admin Services Director, because he already deals with the Community Development Block Grant money that comes through the county from the state to Community Action Center, so he's well aware of how to properly audit it and maintain monitoring over what Jeff and their crew do already. The last we heard from Department of Commerce, they'll have the rules out sometime in November as to how you go about awarding this money. We have the state law, of course, but they're writing all the wax as to what you do. We've been given direction by the Washington State Auditor's Office on what accounts to set up, so we've set up a revenue account and we've set up the expense accounts already. We don't expect to actually receive any money at the earliest until mid-December now, and it may be actually January of next year. One of the reasons we promptly enacted this is your collection period starts approximately 30 days after you notify the Department of Revenue. So by getting this done the first Sunday in September, October 1 would be when we start collecting the money. And I'm just trying to look through here and see if there's anything else. The choices that I see the city having for you guys to consider is the following. If you do nothing, the money the city would normally get under an enacted code will come to the county. It doesn't generate any more than what the county gets right now. If you enact your own code, half or more of the money would come away from the county, go to the city, and then you'd have to manage the reporting and everything on your side, in addition to us having to manage reporting on our side. The only way there would be more money was if the council decided that they wished to enact an additional local qualifying tax, and there's several of those listed. I gave you several documents because I figured it was simpler than me standing here and trying to explain everything that's a complicated subject. One of them looks like this. This is from the Association of Washington Cities. It explains HB 1406 and how it works. Another document I gave you is from the Washington State Association of Counties. Looks like this one, it's green. They basically say the same thing, maybe from a little different viewpoint, but they cover the subject pretty well on all the different issues with it. I've also, Jeff Guyette and Adam and I met the other day and talked about this subject a little bit. We expect the Department of Commerce will have some type of administration fee on their annual report for reviewing what we've done and any type of grants. And one of the questions that's up in the air is, what's that fee going to cost? And if you have two entities doing the same thing for the same total pot of money, will you end up with two fees? And that's one of the considerations we had when we were talking the other day is, you know, are we just creating bureaucracy for bureaucracy's sake, or will we get something done with the money? There's an option to bond with this money. You're only talking $113,000, $115,000 a year. And I talked with Gary Petrovich about this a bit. It really doesn't work as a bonding mechanism because there isn't enough revenue there. Your costs for putting out a bond is probably going to be $80,000 would be a real round number. You're going to use almost 1 year's revenue just in bonding by the time you get that, and then you've got the interest and everything else that goes with it. We did talk about the potential that maybe you could do some line of credit if you had a big project coming up that you could work with a local bank on. And that might be something the city and the county jointly would work on if they were interested. But that was the exploration of the bonding aspect. I did give you a copy of the resolution and our code change, just so you have that. And of course, this was an estimate of what would be generated in 2018. That was one of the first documents that came out from WASAC and AWC. And that'll adjust depending on what the sales are in each year. So that's a quick summary. I guess I'll let Jeff say what he wants to say, and then we can take on any questions that
Well, first of all, I thank you for involving the Community Action Center, and it's already got the mechanism to take care of these kinds of things with low-rent housing, things of that nature. So,
yeah, we at the county would be spinning our wheels if we tried to take this on, and that doesn't make sense. It makes sense to use the local mechanism that already Pullman and the county are part of, which is Community Action Center. So,
okay.
Jeff.
So thanks for the opportunity, Council and Mr. Mayor. First, before I shared anything about what our intent would be with House Bill 1406, I wanted to share a thank you to the city staff, especially Public Works and Planning and Building departments. We are just getting started on our Riverview project out here in Pullman, and really excited about that. And that's an affordable housing project, and that's something where it's an example of what we might be able to do with the kinds of funds that are coming through here. But the way that I see this working best for Whitman County is to let those funds accrue over time and then use that as leverage for a larger funded capital project. This is a 20-year window of time that we'll be able to collect these funds using 1406. And that 20-year window is half the time it would be for a 40-year life project. So, for instance, a low-income housing tax credit project like what we're doing now has a 40-year lifespan where it provides affordable housing for 40 years under the law. So that's twice the time limit that you have over this 20 years in 1406. So really investing in some kind of capital project, using it as a piece of the funding braid that would go into a larger project, seems to me like the best use of that fund. We can and we are allowed to, because of the size of our county, we're allowed to use it for rental assistance and for some other smaller needs. And we could spend that money that way, but I don't believe that that would be in the best interest in terms of long-term investment for the county and for the city of Pullman. And we've talked a little bit about the fact that the way the population base is in Whitman County, more than likely projects or affordable housing needs that would come up would tend to be Pullman-centric, just because that's where the need arises. So we definitely want to be working with the county and with the city to develop a strategic plan for how you apply these funds and what kind of projects to build. So that's pretty much all I had for tonight. If you have any questions, maybe we can.
Questions of the council? Nathan?
Thank you, Mayor. So Jeff and Art, I think you both know that poverty, homelessness is one of my major focuses. And I think this is a huge, such an important step, Commissioner Swanek. I brought this up during goal setting for us to explore our role and how we can help. Could you explain how the city might be able to either collaborate, or, I mean, you had discussed adoption of a city tax, but does that also step on the toes of the county? Because I don't want to, you know, I mean,
Councilmember Weller, so if the city were to adopt a local qualifying tax, the city then would get all of the revenue from HB 1406 inside their city limits. So in our case, for the county, what currently would be $115,000 coming to the county to then distribute, save up, would turn to about $20,000. Because most of the revenue is generated down here in Pullman in this area. That's just a fact of life. That's where most of the business, that's where the university is, that's where the city is. That's just what it is. The advantage of the council taking and having the citizens vote on a qualifying tax would be you generate more money. The question would be whether the citizens would pass it. If they didn't, then you're kind of in the same boat you are otherwise, which is you have to pass what we passed in order to make anything happen. But with a qualifying tax. If you don't pass anything, then all of this 1406 money comes into one pot. So, you know, that's a choice for you guys as to whether or not you believe you want to put something like that on the ballot. But it'd be additional money. I don't know, does that explain what you're asking? Go ahead.
sorry.
One of the other items that are listed in there is the discussion of an interlocal agreement where you can partner with between different government agencies, or you can potentially partner with the three entities together and come up with a plan for how those funds are to be used. But really, staff's looking for feedback from council on whether or not we should be pursuing moving forward with the resolution by January of next year, and subsequently having a discussion about whether we should be pursuing the tax to have basically or split the money that the county is already going to be collecting. Obviously, I'd also be interested if you are interested in pursuing the other qualifying taxes as well.
So, sorry.
You shot the floor.
So I know, Adam, there was some language that was in question when we were discussing this at goal setting.
Yeah, so right now, the way it's written, and Commissioner Swanwick can correct me, but I think that cities would only be allowed to collect the money for a single year with the way it's written right now, or maybe it's 2 years. But basically, there's groups that are working on it, according to the attorneys at Wasama, to resolve that. It was an error in the way that the legislation was written, and that's what Association Washington Cities had suggested as well, that it was just an error and oversight. They're working to correct that language.
But, Adam's correct in that there is a catch, that if the city were to enact the 1406 without a qualifying tax, then I think it's after 1 year you don't get to qualify, you don't get to collect the tax.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a downside if you don't intend to add a qualifying local tax. I think some people say it was an error. Other ones say that possibly was a little catch that was put into the bill to try and get cities to pass more homeless and affordable housing taxes. One way or the other, it's what's in the bill right now.
And the city did step up and help, because I know when Mark Workman was here, we came up with a letter of support for the affordable housing, that we would help work with you on that, that you use to try and find loans and things like that. So the city has taken different steps to try and work with the Community Action Center. So, and I think that was instrumental in the help, and that's with Public Works and how they've helped out as well.
And one other thing Adam and I and Jeff talked about was whether the city would want an MOU between the county and the city saying what our intentions were with this money. If you felt you needed that, that'd be something the county would be open to creating with you. But I'll honestly say I don't see the commissioner starting up our own affordable housing entity. It just isn't logical. It doesn't make sense. We're already together on CAC's board. Right. As long as the rules allow us to award it, CAC is most likely the place it's going to. So.
Yeah.
So am I correct in understanding then that if the city chooses to not act on this, that because of what you just said about the money's going to community action, Pullman probably will, we still will benefit from this money?
I believe you will. if you don't act on it, then all the money goes to the county under 1406. And then the county's intention is that CAC be the entity that then does projects and asks, okay, we need some of this money to fix up affordable housing or whatever that qualifies, and go on from there.
So you have a resolution that actually says the Community Action Center is actually...
We can't do that yet because we don't have the rules from Commerce.
Okay. But when you have that...
When we have the rules from Commerce, I think we could set up a resolution of intent of what the purpose of these funds is and where we intend them to go.
Which I think just would make everyone here comfortable too.
And I understand that, yeah.
If I might, there is the possibility too that it will be issued in the form of some kind of a RFP that's required or something where we would then have to apply for that grant money as an administering agency, and we would have every intent to do that. And certainly we've worked with the county before on administering that kind of funding. So I would assume that that's how we would go. And in terms of working between the county and the city, I think it would be really wise, and looking at the regional housing needs housing assessment recently released, it'd be really wise to have more than one group of people around the table to kind of decide what's the best way forward to do a project with the most impact. And so my goal would be not to do that just from our office, but to actually work with the city and the county to really do a well thought out, planned affordable housing either project or approach.
And you've already got people already on an advisory committee, so you already have the names of people that could actually help, and it could involve poverty awareness committee, could involve others in the community when you did your housing study.
We have a lot of smart people in the community that can help to figure out the best way forward for sure.
Since you have the floor, Jeff, you might fill the council in on Riverview and where you're at. And
Sure. So the reason I was thanking city staff is we just recently closed on Friday on all the financing for Riverview, 56 units of affordable housing. It's low-income tax credit housing, and the city really worked with us to kind of finish the race to get that to close by approving plans and working with us to make our deadline for closing. So right now, we've actually mobilized Motley on the site. They're on the site. They've put in all the stormwater measures, and I believe that they've already been inspected by the city, and we should be getting builder permits hopefully in the next 24 hours. That's the plan. Then Motley will start excavation. There's a lot of excavating to do on the site. It's a slope site. But we intend to get a couple of foundations in before winter and then hopefully have everything completed by August or September of 2020 and then lease up and finish by the end of 2020, by the end of the calendar year. So that's the goal. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that CAC operates other affordable housing in the community, and you might also, since some people may not know Thomason Place and others.
Yeah, sure. We operate 170 or so affordable housing units across the county right now, not just in Pullman. We have some in Colfax, up in Tico, and we also provide housing for seniors, for those with disabilities, and for those who have developmental disabilities. So that's kind of one of our areas where we try to work with our low-income population to make sure that they have affordable, safe housing to live in, to have homes. And yeah, so this will add to our portfolio. We're actually looking at also working with Cambridge Property Management with Thomason Place 2. We currently are not, we help to develop that and to build that, but we're not managing that. We're looking at adding that to our portfolio as well, just as a way to be sure that those are being administered properly in the city and county. So yeah, so this is housing and food for us are the two big areas where we want to invest in community and to make sure that those who aren't at an income level, above median income or well below median income, they have a place to stay that's affordable for them and that's safe and secure.
Clarifying question about 1406. So the qualifying local match or local taxes, so is this, if we chose to enact our own tax and then we have the qualifying local, are we increasing the overall pot that would be coming into the county and the city, or are we just kind of taking over the chunk that is provided under 1406?
I don't know that there's a net increase. I would have to look at it closely.
The total pot under 1406 is the same. The local qualifying tax would be an additional tax your citizens would vote into place. That goes to the same purpose, or essentially the same purpose.
So if it were an affordable housing tax, right, they passed, in 2015, they passed, I think it's House Bill 2263, that allowed you to pass a local affordable housing tax of 1/10 of 1%. So that would have to be passed by the voters in Pullman to pass that, similar to what you're doing with the hospital and what you've done with the city offices. So whether or not, I mean, certainly that'd be great to have that extra amount in the pot. Whether or not the city's ready for that is a really good question. Certainly would help to leverage things forward a little bit.
And I think that'd be, my question is, what is the potential estimate of revenue from those different options? And is that going to make a big difference, or are we really looking at kind of the small numbers that isn't really going to make a difference and cost money in putting it out for?
Well, if you took your sheet and took a calculation of 1/10 of 1% of what your total retail sales are, that's the additional amount that would be added to the pot. So I don't have those numbers in my head, but that's what it would be.
Yeah, but otherwise,
Mike's got it already in his head. I think he doesn't need to calculate it.
I have that data available, yes.
Otherwise, from my perspective, I think what Commissioner Swanek has talked about in having, one governing body already has this in place, and they have mechanisms set up for the reporting requirements. Why would we take on additional reporting requirements just to split the same pot? Because I think our intention would be to partner with CIC on any projects as well. So.
And I'd have to agree with Councilmember Records that when looking at this at first, it seemed on top of, a larger amount on top of there. But if there's interlocal agreements that can be explored and working together and definitely providing support behind our county. We already have a great working relationship. I think that makes the most sense. And being able to communicate that out to the public that we're all working towards the same, goal with affordable housing. I think that would be the most logical approach. So.
Okay. I'll get other numbers for you also and email that out to everybody once we have an idea of what the additional funding is.
Pretty well seeing agreement on that from council members here. They leave it with the way it is. Okay? So thank you very much. If there's no other questions, Ann.
Commissioner, do you have any more of the AWC handouts?
I'll email it to you all.
Oh, you'll email it, thank you.
And I can do one right now.
I have one.
AWC one, you've got the
Perfect,
AWC
you
out.
can share.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We've got it.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We now move to item D on our agenda tonight. This consent agenda. These items are considered routine in nature. The council has had a chance to look these over ahead of time. Do I hear a motion to read by title only?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And with that, Laura McAloon, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Your consent agenda consists of a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the regular meeting of September 24, 2019, and approve them as submitted. A motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the special meeting of October 5, 2019, and approve them as submitted. A motion approving disbursements represented by accounts payable checks numbered 97423 through 97480, totaling $1,354,958.47. A motion approving disbursements represented by accounts payable checks numbered 97481 through 97541, totaling $157,887.88. A motion approving disbursements represented by accounts payable electronic transfers numbering 9252019, totaling $71,844.93. A motion approving disbursements represented by accounts payable checks numbered 97542 through 97629, totaling $365,265.81. A motion approving disbursements represented by accounts payable checks numbered 97630 through 97655, totaling $417,936.58. Electronic transfers 554 through 558, totaling $619,891.45. Payroll checks numbered 74883 through 74890, totaling $13,776.09. And payroll direct deposits numbered 56987 through 57344, totaling $962,526.36. A motion to authorize the transfer of $205,374 of retail sales tax revenue from the general fund to the restricted CIP reserve fund for the third quarter of 2019. A motion to accept the South Street Utility Replacement Project, contract number 18-14 as complete. A motion to accept Spring Street Utility Upgrades, contract number 19-05 is complete. A motion to accept Sidewalks 2019, contract number 19-03 is complete. A motion to ratify change order number 1 to the autumn summer water line and street improvements contract. A motion to approve a lodging tax grant to the American Junior Golf Association in an amount up to $25,000 for the American Junior Golf Association Junior Tournament at Palouse Ridge.
Is there any item the council would like out for discussion? Seeing none, the consent agenda consists of items 1 through 13. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We now move to the regular agenda tonight, a public hearing, 2020 revenue sources and property tax levy. With that, Mike Urban, our Finance Director, Administrative Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'm going to start with an apology on the sales tax discussion a second ago. I had printed out my slides for this item, and which you guys have in advance as well. And I did it in such a way where I was going to go back to my slide 5 and run a quick calculation of what I have going here. And I've just realized I am old. I will be making an appointment with the eye doctor tomorrow. I think I need bifocals. So after this meeting, I will go do that calculation for you really quick and send an email. So tonight, we are here to discuss revenue sources for the city of Pullman going into 2020. Now, with the adoption of the 2019-2020 budget, many of these revenue sources have already been set by budget, but due to a little quirk in the law and how property tax levies do, this is something that we will see every year. So as per RCW, I'm going to give you a presentation. We're going to discuss some of the high points, focus really hard on the property tax portion of this, and then be able to answer questions before and after the hearing. So I've distilled my 37 slides originally to what I consider the 8 most important slides in this one. So first up, we have these next 3 slides you have summarized in your packet on one sheet if you wanted to look at them together. So taxes, licenses, this accounts for over 70% of the total revenue budget for the city of Pullman, with property taxes accounting for over 33%. Property tax collections we will always collect. It might not all be in the year it's levied, but eventually the county treasurer will have to put properties up for sale that don't pay their property taxes, and the minimum rate set, or minimum amount set in those auctions is the property tax owed. So we may collect it later, but we will always collect it. Our collection rate is over 99% for the last 2 years. And with property taxes due at the end of this month, there'll be more data coming in the first couple weeks in November. So I focus an awful lot on sales tax because it is our most volatile form of revenue. When I moved here and started looking at how things went, I started those monthly emails alerting council and staff as to where we are and where we are compared to last year. There's a couple sales tax items later on, so I'm not going to belabor that at this point. So the next portion here is our intergovernmental totals, 3.4% of the budget. These are interlocal grants, liquor tax, excise, or liquor excise tax profits, the marijuana tax. So these are some dollars that come in as well. And, you know, I set this up to look at our actual of 18, our budget mid-year, which you would always consider, you know, just double it and that's what we're going to hit. But because a lot more of our business happens in the fourth quarter, it's kind of skewed that way. So a year-end estimate, how that compares to the 2020 budget, and what the difference is year-end versus 2020.
So Mike, we always get asked the question by many people about the marijuana revenue.
Yeah.
We know we get a little bit in sales tax, and then this is the excise tax where it says marijuana here.
Correct.
So if someone wanted to find out how much the city actually gets, it would be right there about $75,000.
Right.
In the excise. Mm-hmm. And then it's, okay.
As how it's reported, it's its own separate line.
Which is the reason why the cities all around the state have tried to get more money, because again, we have to work law enforcement and other things that have to deal with them, so.
That, and on top of the drop in the liquor profits, and that we realized several years ago to make the state budget meet, where that was reallocated. Mm-hmm. So the next slide is just the other items, and there's a nice piece of that too, is the charges for services make up about 18%, and that's for plan review fees, aquatic memberships, and the charges for doing business as the city of Pullman, fines, and the other miscellaneous revenue as that comes in. So total budget, everything is really close on every item as to what we've been collecting and what's been budgeted. It's just kind of, a hair off here or a hair higher there. And it was rolling along nice until about a week ago when I sent everybody that email, and there was just that little tick down in the sales tax that causes every finance director to gulp, me included. So speaking of sales tax, this is the chart I tried to do, and these numbers were just too small. But if you look at our traditional revenue of sales tax collections month over month, year over year from 14 to 19, the black line is where we are this year. And you can see there's that little deviation coming in, but it's been fairly close with some hits and misses. You see that nice little red spike in October right there last year. I have been trying to get to the bottom of why the collection was so high. That's been our highest month out of the ordinary, and so trying to match last year. Hopefully we can do it, but I'm cautiously optimistic on that. So sales tax, talked about my memo. So sales tax is always reported 2 months after it actually happened. So the email that I sent you for the September reporting was actually July activity. So businesses have their July, they have until the 25th of the following month to report their dollars to the state, and then the state turns around and gets that to us a couple weeks later. So that's why there's the 2-month lag. So sales tax being as volatile as it is, I'll keep monitoring that. We have another distribution coming in 2 weeks, and I think that'll really give us a good feel of it, because that's August. That's when the students arrive back in town. We'll see what the retail sales look like. So why we're really discussing today is the real property taxes. So in 2007, City of Pullman crossed the $1 billion threshold for assessed value of property. 2019, we were just under 200 million, or 2 billion. I talked to Whitman County Assessor Robin Jones. The 2020 number, we are over that. We are $2,057,949,935 for the city of Pullman for assessed value. And if you see, looking back here to 2014, where it kind of plateaus off and then jumps right up, that's about $600 million in assessed value that has been realized by the city of Pullman in those years. And that's very significant. So what does that mean to the property owners? You get your property tax bill at the beginning of the year. This is 2019's portion, since 2020 isn't set. And the residents of City of Pullman received a bill which amounts to approximately $14.50 per $1,000 of assessed value. And why that's approximate is really those numbers trail down. There's probably about 8 more digits, but at some point we just got to stop and round up. These dollars do not all go to the city of Pullman. They're split different ways. Whitman County has their portion at $1.53. Port of Whitman, State of Washington at $3.03. The hospital district, the school district at $4.28 approximately. Then the city of Pullman at $4.71, and that includes the EMS, that includes the bond repayment, Metro Parks District, as well as the city in general. So, like sales tax with the 7.8, 6.5 goes to the state, we retain 1.5. 14.49 per thousand goes to Whitman County Treasurer, and they redistribute these dollars. That much back to the city of Pullman. So, dollars to dollars time. The 2019 levy for the city, EMS, and Metro Parks were all set and adopted, recorded with the county before the November 30th, 2018 deadline. Same thing needs to happen here in 2019. By state law, we can only take a 1% increase. So if we look at our 2019 number and multiply it by 1%, that could be our 2020 total if council chooses to act. What council also is being recommended to do is take the projected new construction valuation and add that to that amount for the actual 2020 total. And that's the $34,349,541 value. That is a projection right now because in my same conversation with the assessor, that number will not be finalized until November 1st. So I will be, as soon as that is a final number, I'll be making you aware and updating this spreadsheet. The new construction's just a little down from where we projected when the budget was passed. It is what it is. I hope that they find an extra approximately $5 million worth there, then we'll be right where we need to be. The difference, the 2020 versus the 2019, by taking the new property and the 1% is $223,544.56. So, next steps. I certainly want to answer any questions and, of course, comments, but want to just take a moment to go back over the schedule that you guys approved a couple weeks ago. So we're having the public hearing today. Between now and the 19th of November, I'm prepared to do any research and figure out whatever additional information you want. So on the 19th, we can come back and council can make their decision. Budget amendments on the 3rd of December for a first look, and then the 10th for a vote. There has been a little change in the schedule for workflow as far as Whitman County goes and why this November 19th is important. After I brought this to you and you set the schedule, in my conversation with the assessor, is the Whitman County Commissioners decided to change the process a little bit. That although we have until the 30th to have this and approved at the county, the commissioners are closing the agenda for that action on 5 o'clock on the 20th. And they are going to meet on the 25th in public session to have this vote. So it's new. It was not communicated to us. I was supposed to receive a letter today outlining this so that I could forward it to you, but this is just for my conversation with the assessor. So when council takes action on the 19th of November, my plan is to go up to Colfax on the 20th and make sure that is recorded in person so it gets on the agenda in the timely fashion. So I'll be more aware of that in the future, and I just kind of hope they communicated this to other districts as well. Additional sales tax information from the Finance Department will continue. That first week in November is going to be very important to me, I think, kind of setting the tone as to where things are. I'm sure that it was just a bump last month. I'm sure it was just a bump last month. I'm sure it was just a bump last month. And when the property tax collection data becomes available, I will send that forward too, because there'll be some trailing. There's always late taxpayers for property tax, but we should see the bulk of it in November. most people mail their checks right on the 31st of October, and then Treasurer's Office has to process it. So with that,
Okay,
I'm available for questions.
Dan?
Can you kind of describe what banking is? The banking of the...
Oh, the banking of the 1%?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if the city chooses not to take the 1%, they have kind of two choices, just that's it and it's over, or they can bank that capacity. And the ordinance can be tailored in such a way where it does that. So what that does is it takes the ability for that 1%, push it down the road to another time when the city is ready to take that banked capacity and take a higher than 1% in that particular year.
And there's a statutory maximum to that eventually, right?
I'm going to want to double check what that is because I have that. It's right there, and I don't want to spit out the wrong thing. But
I
yeah.
just wanted to make sure that's, people are aware of that that's one of the options. But I mean, personally, I don't think that that's an option that I would recommend.
My concern as your finance director is that although we can raise the property tax levy by 1%, we're not seeing costs of doing business within the city go up at only 1% as well. Our insurance is taking a very big hit, looks like in 2020, and we're looking at some of these other things. I have meetings with department heads the last week of the month. I'm waiting for the credit card cycle to finish because that's kind of the last piece of the third quarter stuff that was charged in September, now we're paying, where I can go over the budgets with the departments, talk to them about some of their challenges and where there's some savings to do, what we need to do for budget amendments coming in front of you, and then I can get those items tailored. I think I have everybody scheduled, and I think everybody's confirmed with me, so.
Okay, any other, Brandon?
Mike, thank you for this. I've talked with our assessor. I think, she's great. She's newer. Have we made headway with her on some of the properties that have been drastically undervalued?
I believe yes, because we saw that big spike coming into this year, and that's kind of an important thing to mention to our taxpayers, is just because your assessed value went up a whole much, if you're paying the $4.71 per whatever, it's not going to go up by that $4.71. When the council sets the budget for the property tax levy for the budget, it's the dollar amount divided by the assessed value, so it's a reconfiguration of these dollars per thousand. And my short math, it's going to be a little bit lower, I think, than the $4.70 with the increase in assessed value. I've been trying to get up and meet with the assessor. We've had some very good conversations on the phone, and I believe there is headway being made in that direction.
That's good to hear. The other thing I was curious about, with sales tax revenue, it says collection by month. So is that the month that money is spent, or do we receive that? Is that with a lag in there at all?
Yeah,
I'm just wondering if 5 football games in September had a bump in October.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have qualified that. The chart you're looking at is actual month that it happened. So the July paid in September is actually being shown as July, so you guys can look at apples to apples. So what happened in October, and my first thought was, oh, game day. And then I did the backwards math, and I'm like, there's no way that game day brought in more than $10 million in a weekend, but boy, wouldn't that be great. That's a huge investment for the city at the university to, keep replicating that, but construction projects and the like. So when you are looking at that, you're looking at the actual month of activity collected 2 months later.
Big spike.
Other question, Nathan?
So I had a question regarding the marijuana, as has already been discussed, the money coming back to us. It does look like we got quite a bump from the 2018 year, is that correct?
There was a change.
Yes.
They changed
There was a change that year.
I was wondering if that correlated with that, and so.
It did.
And opening was the new business opened at that time as well, the Cush across from Dismore's?
I don't remember. I don't think it was, but I don't recall.
Okay, yeah. And just as Mayor Johnson said, we need to continue, I don't know how best to do it, but continue to advocate for additional funds, because not only the 1%, which was passed with, one of Tim Iman's initiatives, gouged our departments. The same thing is happening with marijuana, and as you explained, the liquor tax as well is, it's draining. And I was on council when the 1% came on, and so I'm just communicating that out to everybody out there. Those initiatives
As
have
we
been
all
met.
found out, when the state was hurting, they took that money away from us.
Yep.
Even though the cities were hurting.
Yeah.
And so,
And one other thing, if, this is a challenge that some counties and cities are running into, if they choose to not have these businesses, they don't get that money back.
That's correct.
To help them. So there may be a lot of people who are not for the marijuana business, that's understandable, but also they don't get any money back to help their county or their city. So just wanted to communicate that, but great report, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, with that, let's open the public hearing on the revenue sources and property tax levy that Mike has presented. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make any comments about the projection for revenue, the property tax that has been presented? And if you do, you have a 3-minute time limit. Going once. With that, I close the public hearing. With this, we now adjourn a meeting of the City Council. We now convene the meeting of the Metropolitan Park District. And the first item before you is a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes. Do I hear a motion on that?
So moved.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, we now have the public hearing on the revenue sources and property tax for the Metropolitan Park District. Once again, Mike Urban.
Thank you. If it pleases the board, I will skip the whole presentation over and just kind of dwell on the Metro Parks portion of this. Again, the same reasons we're here. The budget was already approved, 2019-20 and 2018 for revenue sources, except the property tax levy. So we're looking at that again. The timing of it needs to be into the county before the 30th for approval, but really it needs to be there before the 20th. I plan on bringing this part back along with the city council items on the 19th for discussion and council action. Specifically, the Metro Parks, if you notice, the levy for that in 2019 was $574,489. The 1% increase brings that up to $580,233.89. Plus, if you take the new construction as well, up to $594.64. Just a tick down, same issue going on. The projected new construction wasn't quite where it was anticipated. About $7,500 difference as far as revenue to the Metro Parks goes. At this time, we'll wait for the new projected the actual construction valuation when it's assigned by the county assessor. Our collections for 2019, half of them are in, the other half is coming at the end of the month, and it's very, very close to budget. Other revenue, I'd like to take an opportunity to mention this again. It was district has collected $39,632. That number can be updated. We received a $3,000 check today for bulbs on Bishop from a donor, but of that $42,000 now, $25,000 of it came from the generous donation of the Kiwanis Club, Pullman, for Mary's Park. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board.
Questions on the Metropolitan Park? Okay. Yes.
Thank you to the Kiwanis Club.
Yes.
Yeah. Mary's Park is...
They've been saving for that one, for the Mary's Park, and it's been fantastic.
Very hard at that,
Yes, they
yes.
have. Since there's no questions, we open a public hearing now for the Metropolitan Park District as presented. Anyone in the audience who would like to make any comments regarding the revenue, or the tax for the Metropolitan Park District? Seeing none, I close the public hearing.
Okay, so my last question, is there any additional information other than the sales tax item I'm going to send you tonight and keeping you appraised of the property tax and sales tax collection over the next couple of weeks? Okay, if you change your mind, please reach
I
out.
think one item, since we all are concerned about the liquor revenue and also with the marijuana revenue, because we're putting together our legislative package, and we will have legislators here in December. It would be really nice to share with them what this city gets out of what we should be getting. So it would be nice to have that for that presentation. Good point. Yeah. We can actually, usually they like to have examples, and we can actually show, here's how little we got. Here's what the state collected. Here's what the revenue was for the Whitman County, because we can see those numbers. And then here's what we got.
And how many shops we have
Yeah,
here.
right. And in the county,
comparison.
because we have the tax sharing agreement. So Floyd's contributes in terms of our sales tax too. But it would be nice to have those kind of numbers when we have the legislators here. Yeah.
Yeah, can I add some? So in a recent, I guess, committee meeting for the Downtown Pullman Association, the creative district came up, and I don't think a lot of people realize that one of the reasons that some folks were not on board with that was because we were being told this is a sort of a pilot project. You know, we want you to jump in with both feet, you know, here with the state. And some of us know how much we were promised with different kind of revenues, and we're not getting that from the marijuana. So it actually hurts other areas too, and certainly we don't want that distrust, but why would we take a leap of faith in those situations if we just don't know what's going to come back our way?
And what the state giveth, it taketh away, as we found out with the Public Works Trust Fund and some other things too.
Right.
So,
Okay, I'll prepare some.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, I just got to compliment you, because I've obviously been mayor for a while and have seen a lot of different financial reports. This has been outstanding. It really has. Just want you to know that. With that, we now move to item number 2, resolution approving the 6-year transit development plan for calendar years 2019, 2024, and the 2018 annual report for the city of Pullman. With that, Wayne Thompson, our transit manager.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. On September 24th, we held a public hearing here to look at the 2018 annual report and the 6-year transit development plan. And some of the highlights of that 2018 annual report were that both dial ride and fixed route saw a 3.2% increase in ridership for 2018. We received a new dial ride van that year, and we placed the order for an electric hybrid bus. The fixed routes moved from 45 to 35-minute loops, and we had extensive conversations that year about moving forward with electric buses. Highlights from the 6-year development plan. I kept my emphasis on a conservative approach with sustainable service. An every other year cycle of buses and vans, often in pairs when we can. And we do have intentions to expand our garage and our office facility. So as a result of the public hearing on the 24th, I did make 3 changes at yours and the public's request. Those were to identified specifically looking at the Moscow-Pullman corridor and sustainable options for public transit. We are evaluating both our ridership data and public input when it comes to where we need bus stop shelters, and even expanding the shelters that we already have. And in fact, this morning we started looking at some of that data. And finally, we're considering whether or not our Davis Way transfer station site is adequate as service potentially expands in the future, and if not, where that may go. We will look at that as part of the 6-year plan. So with that, my request is your vote to adopt the resolution accepting our 2018 annual report and the 6-year transit development plan.
Any questions or comments for Wayne?
Wayne, I really appreciate this report and you adjusting it as well with the comments. I know I've talked about this a lot, and it remains one of my passions, is regional transportation. And I know right now we're at capacity, even probably more than capacity with what we're handling. And looking 6 years in the future, is there any possibility of entering into an MOU with surrounding, city of Moscow, Palouse, anything? Would you see that as a possibility? I'm not saying adopting anything, but see that as a possibility in the coming years.
With council support, of course, and I think Moscow is the likely first step. I would hope to not try to do all surrounding communities at once, and Moscow, of course, is the one we're getting the most pressure to serve.
Okay, all right. Well, I appreciate you talking. There's been a lot of people asking about this, so.
Sure.
Thanks for floating that
And
thought.
there's always that issue with the state line and interstate commerce and some other things, and running a public versus a private firm, since we have a private firm in town too. I mean,
We could do it.
You've had to deal with those
We
issues.
could do it. Research has shown that we can expand our public transit system beyond the city limits, but can we afford to? Would there be ridership to support it? What frequencies? I'm keeping the question alive with Moscow. I'm meeting with their transit director again soon, just tossing the idea around what their interest is, and it really hinges on what you would like us to look seriously at for options. The interest publicly is certainly there.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I would love to at least explore, continue to do that with Moscow. I mean, it occurred to me as we were sitting in the new airport runway ceremony that, our mayor had spoken very much about all these different entities coming together. And I realize that there are certain things that might stand in our way, but I'd love to at least find out what we could do to maybe bypass that, aside from the ridership projections or whatever they may be.
Sure.
I mean, that is a very real concern, but at least have those conversations. I think that's totally worthwhile.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments? With that, do I hear a motion on this resolution?
Move to adopt.
Second.
There's a second, Laura?
Resolution number R-70-19, a resolution approving a 6-year transit development plan for calendar years 2019 through 2024, and the 2018 annual report for the city of Pullman.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item number 3 is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of federal state operating grant for Pullman Transit. Again, Wayne.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. City Council approved our application to the State Department of Transportation in September of 2018. This application is what was referred to as a consolidated grant application. It had a capital component, a technology component. Tonight's component that I'm asking your approval on is the operational component, the combined dial-a-ride and fixed route service operating support. Some of the highlights: this is the first year that the state offered us a 4-year option for operational funding, and we didn't hesitate. We jumped at that opportunity. The final 2 years in our application, we asked for a 3% increase, so it's not static for all 4 years. We are getting 3% over those second 2 years, or second group of 2 years. Overall, the package is $5.7 million over 4 years. That is about $1.4 million annually, or 20 to 25% of our operating budget. Of this $5.7 million, only $105,000 is state funding. That's only 2% of this request. So the rest is federal, and we are still a rural system. So 5311 is the name of the funding source at the federal level that we qualify for, and most of what you see we will get as 5311 funding. The balance of our funding is through the utility tax, through our fares and our contracts with WSU, the Pullman School District, and we have a similar contract with Spokane Falls Community College. This 4-year option does give us a little bit of security, some level anyway, in an environment that I'm always trying to stress our need to be be sustainable when we look at services, even the Moscow situation. Certainly need your support and public interest, but we have to see it financially sustainable. At the end of this two-year cycle, we will see from the state a grant amendment that specifies the source of the funding. Right now, it's very clear, the $105,000 is state special needs money. The rest is 5311 federal money. I expect the balance that covers years 3 and 4 will be federal 5311 money as well, but there will be that contract amendment in 2 years. So in closing, this was a big application, being a 4-year request, and we had a lot of support. A lot of community members stepped forth and offered letters of support, and I just want to acknowledge who they were. These always help strengthen a package and show how well-rounded our support is. So we had letters of support from Thomas Lady, the president of the Amalgamated Transit Union, John Shaheen of WSU, Jamie Brush, a heavily involved local citizen who's here tonight, Janice Chow, who's president of JC Global, where we get our online office supplies from. It happens to be a disadvantaged business enterprise, which the state emphasizes. We try to find companies like that. Regency of Pullman wrote a letter of support, as did Circles of Caring, and finally Paul Kimmel with Avista, who's here as well. Thank you, Paul. So my request is that you adopt the resolution that allows us to accept this grant from the State Department of Transportation.
Any further questions? Do I hear a motion to accept money?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Laura?
Resolution number R-71-19, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of federal state operating grant number PTD 0020 for Pullman Transit.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We also have to commend, too, our senators, Patty Murray and Maria Cantwell and Kathy McMorris Rogers. They've also been very supportive of public transit money from the federal
That's
state.
very true.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we now move to item number 4. It's a resolution authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement between the city and Design West. With that, Kevin Gardner, our Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. In keeping with the transit theme, this is another transit item. As of June 1st, 2018, state legislation requires local agencies to follow carbon emission guidelines when purchasing new vehicles. Public Works staff previously evaluated new transit bus purchases and determined that fully electric buses provide the lowest life cycle costs that meet the low carbon emission guidelines. Transit staff prepared a successful grant application for 2 new fully electric buses, which Council accepted at its September 24, 2019 meeting. Transit staff expected to take approximately 2 years before the 2 electric buses will be delivered to Pullman. In order to accommodate fully electric buses, electrical upgrades to the existing transit facility on Guy Street are required. The initial upgrade contemplated would support up to 8 fully electric buses. In addition to service and panel upgrades, this initial phase would provide the charging equipment, conduit, and wiring for 2 fully electric buses. The project is included in the city's capital improvement program. As additional electrical buses are added, each increment of 2 buses will cost an estimated $65,000 for each new pair of charging equipment, conduit, and wiring. If more than 8 buses are served in the future, additional electrical upgrades will likely be required. Professional service agreement has been negotiated with Design West Architects for this project. They also previously completed conceptual design work for this project that informed cost estimates. Architectural services will be performed on a cost reimbursable basis with a not-to-exceed amount of $22,500. This includes design, bidding, and construction administration services. Staff is recommending Council authorize a professional services agreement with Design West Architects for the Transit Building Electrical Upgrades Project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments with Kevin on this? Seeing none, do I hear a motion on this resolution?
Motion to adopt R-72-19.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Laura?
Resolution number R-72-19, a resolution authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement between the City of Pullman and Design West Architects, PA, for the Transit Building Electrical Upgrades Project.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item number 5 is a resolution authorizing the execution of a memorandum of understanding between the city and Retreat at Pullman LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, for the purchase of a parcel of land to be used for future site for a city water tank. Kevin Garris.
Thank you, Mayor. The item before you is a MOU with Retreat at Pullman LLC for the purchase of land to be used as a future city water tank site. Retreat at Pullman LLC is the developer of the Retreat at Pullman multifamily project located west of Merman Drive, north of Skyline Drive, and south of the Port of Whitman's Industrial Park. Their main corporate office is in Athens, Georgia. With this development, staff identified an opportunity to obtain a site for a needed future water tank in the city's northeast high pressure zone. This water tank is identified in the city's capital improvement program. An MOU was negotiated with the developer for the water tank and is presented in your packets. The city will purchase a tank parcel at the appraised value that is to be determined. The tank parcel is estimated to be approximately 1 acre plus or minus. Per the MOU, the developer will also be required to dedicate a minimum 30-foot right-of-way to the city for future extension of Skyview Drive from the current west terminus of Skyview Drive right-of-way to the west property line of the Retreat at Pullman site. The developer is also required to pay for half the cost of Skyview Drive improvements, estimated at $187,303.50. The full construction of Skyline Drive cannot reasonably be completed until the adjacent property to the south is developed and the right-of-way acquired. Therefore, the developer will provide a cash deposit for their share. It is staff's recommendation that council adopt the attached resolution authorizing the MOU with Retreat at Pullman LLC for the purchase of parcel of land for a future water tank site, and I'd be happy to answer questions.
Question? Yeah. Al?
So it's going to be right next to where the current water tower is. So will that current water tower remain in use, or what's going to happen there?
That remains to be determined, but we plan to make the new water tank at least 16 feet higher so that we can address not only capacity issues with volume up there, but also increase pressure slightly to some of the upper elevation apartments and deal with some issues we have with that. So that existing tank could either be torn down or it could be left as a backup capacity tank. It's the only, the new tank would be the only one in the pressure zone, so if we wanted to take it down for maintenance for any reason, we could always temporarily use the existing tank, or we could just take it down.
So, okay, we're going to build a new tank right next to an existing tank. Not modify the existing tank? I'm just asking questions.
No, I don't think we can modify it from a structural standpoint. We would have to make it higher to be able to function with the other tank. It wouldn't be operationally, it wouldn't work with the new tank if the new tank has a water level that's 16 feet higher.
And when we had the Grove fire, the existing tank had some issues. I know that we pretty well drained it pretty quick.
Yeah, I think the issue that night was also that the booster pump stations that serve that tank had to be manually turned on, so.
Any other questions on this? Then do I hear a motion on this resolution?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moving and second. Laura?
Resolution number R-73-19, a resolution authorizing the execution of a memorandum of understanding between the City of Pullman and Retreat at Pullman, LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, for the purchase of a parcel of land to be used as a future site for a city water tank.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We now move to the discussion phase of our council meeting tonight. And first item for discussion is the Spring Street EV parking. And with that, Kevin.
Thank you, Mayor. In June of 2017, Council authorized a site license and access agreement with Avista for a 10-stall public parking lot located on city property just north of the existing WSU Visitor Center parking lot. The lot includes 4 electric vehicle charging stalls. 2 stalls are served by 50 kW DC fast charger, which basically goes from 0 to 80% in 20 to 30 minutes. The 2 other stalls are served by an AC level phase 2 charger, takes between 4 and 6 hours to charge a fully depleted battery. These 4 stalls are the only stalls for electric vehicles. The remaining 6 stalls will initially be for any vehicle, but could be converted to EV stalls at a future time. The city agreed to contribute $16,500 toward the project, with Avista picking up the remaining project cost, estimated at over $100,000. With the public lot nearing completion, it is now time to consider the parking time limits for the 6 non-EV stalls. A recent analysis of a nearby city lot across Spring Street showed heavy pressure from WSU students and staff with respect to all-day parking. Council authorized revisions to that lot that set 2-hour parking limits for the majority of the lot. Along the same line of reasoning, staff is recommending that the 6 non-EV stalls be set with 2-hour parking limits. Input was requested from the police department's code enforcement officers, and they concurred with the 2-hour limit. Tonight, we are requesting council input and direction. If so desired, we will bring back a resolution at a later date for council action. I also wanted to mention that Paul Kimmel's in the audience tonight, and I would just like to offer my appreciation for Avista bringing this opportunity forward. They brought a lot of opportunities forward for the city, the LED streetlights, the smart grid. So this is just another, smaller project, but in the same vein, and certainly appreciate that. And just want to acknowledge Avista as a great partner as well.
And Paul put on a great water summit with John Kim last week, so thank you very much for that. Okay, questions or comments?
I got a question of
Yeah.
Paul. Does Avista have a preference on the time for the parking lot?
Mr. Mayor, Council, no. I think the EV sites are prescribed by state statute, so those are a separate issue. I think the city needs to manage as you see fit. I think 2 hours is a reasonable time, but yeah, it's exciting to see the use already. There was a Tesla in there this morning. I've seen Leafs, Nissan Leafs, and some other vehicles, so, it just... No criticism of the city, but gosh, this took a long time to get this project done, and I think there was some challenges with some permits that we just did not foresee, but we got through it all, and it's a really cool parking lot now, and good for Pullman, good for WSU. Those chargers can be used on either side of the parking lot. So somebody pulls into the WSU Visitor Center, they can plug in over there as well. So that's a great partnership. And again, I appreciate the opportunity we can provide the city and the university. So thank you.
If we're getting the fast charge, how much does that go on your credit card? What's the charge kind of thing like that?
Jeez.
Considering we're not getting gas tax any longer.
Yeah. Why don't we ask our city finance director that question?
We'll get that question coming back too sometime.
No, there's no, actually, there would be some utility tax, but minuscule. Yeah, I think it's, somewhere in the half to a third of the cost of a gallon of gas, if that. So, and again, the level 2 chargers are free.
Oh, the level 2 are free.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it's just a fast charge. There's a cart swipe. So.
Yes, Dan.
Does this parking lot include an ADA stall?
It does, but it's not currently marked.
Is that for the electrical stalls with the corridor in the middle?
So real quick question, I don't know who to talk to, so both. Is there a way to track how much the electrical stalls are being used? That would be awesome data. I know Avista's done a few around Pullman. I know some businesses have as well.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, yes. And I was hoping I had some numbers for you tonight, but I don't. But yes, we can see what that usage looks like and sort of understand when the charging happens, the level of that. So yeah, I can provide that to Kevin, and you can kind of see how it's behaved. But yeah, I mean, even when it was on the WSU side, there were people that were sort of gaming the system, parking overnight there, just local residents. A couple people were visiting, but it's okay. I mean, we just want adoption of electric vehicle and electrification, so
Well,
it's all
really,
good.
I'm thinking the data would really help with, Pullman's overall goal of showing how we are being more sustainable as a city.
Yeah.
And of course, Avista has been, as Kevin mentioned, just an outstanding partner in that way. So, yeah, so thanks, Paul.
Thank you. I wish we had more money to put more fast charging system in going west on Highway 26. We could capture some of that east-west traffic coming from Seattle, the students. So we're working on that. Hopefully we can leverage some VW emission dollars. But thank you.
So then they'll all be stopped at Washtuckna doing the fast charging.
The old days where they stopped at that
Right.
drive-in. No.
So you heard Paul's comments and staff's recommendation. Is the council pleased with that recommendation for the length of time? Especially with our test case we've already had on that. Our next item for discussion tonight is strategic communications guidelines. I get to turn this over to our council member, Dan Records and Ann Parks. Okay, Dan.
Okay. So, after, seeing some comments that were coming into the city council through residents contacting us through emails and some comments we were seeing at city council meetings, I think Ann and I got together and kind of talked about, kind of a pattern of things that, somebody say something here, somebody say something over here, and just seeing kind of this pattern of people talking about how the city is communicating with the residents on a number of issues that are of concern to residents, and how we're providing that information in a way that is how we're ensuring that we're providing information in a way that is timely but also accessible and understandable to folks. And so and I think at the last couple of meetings we've had, that's kind of sparked some more direct statements from residents and some really good feedback from a couple of folks too on ideas that they have for what we could do to improve things. And of course, understanding that the city is developing a new website, and that's going to help a lot of people in how that's being designed and how we're going to be able to utilize that as a resource to get information out to folks in a more accessible manner. But in our discussions, I think it was important for us to kind of take stock of those concerns, to reach out to staff and find out, put some information out to staff, and that's what we did. We put together a document with really just a bunch of questions of, what are we currently doing with departments on some of these issues? What are the concerns? When can we? Where might there be room for improvement on getting information out in a better way to folks? And so starting that process to just get something down on paper and then discuss it and see is there something that as a council we want to adopt in sort of recommendations to departments to provide some consistency in how our departments are communicating with residents. And so that's kind of what started this off, and it's what we have here is not a draft. It's not a complete draft. It's really a starting point of what some of these considerations might be. If this is the direction the council wants to go in actually having a drafted document, I think there's some questions on here that we could start going down the list and filling in the blanks of, when do we think certain items need to be communicated out? How do we want to define certain terms? Those types of things. So it's just really just to kick off a discussion on this.
And do you want to add some comments?
Pretty much what he said. We just thought it was a good idea to approach the department heads and get their input on how best to communicate and what we can do to help facilitate that. And we got good feedback from a lot of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I really appreciate the feedback. I know Kevin also provided some feedback that didn't make it into this, so I appreciate your feedback on some of those items, including the CIP, and when that comes out, when we set the public hearing date, I think that's
right.
I don't remember what you said exactly in there, but I think that was a good idea. And Pete had some similar recommendations on that too.
Okay, Nathan.
So just a question. I know you're in this realm, but has this also been vetted by Laura? Because that's some of the topics that have been discussed, and this year and before are in the legal realm, and certain things can be communicated or can't.
So no, I haven't had a discussion with Laura on this. I don't know if Laura's seen this document, but that is something to keep in mind, and some of the feedback we got from some of the department heads too is, there are some legal requirements on when things get communicated.
What state law tells us when we
Yeah.
can.
And so of course, we're not going to override anything that is required of us by state or federal law. But this, what I kind of see this is more of a statement by the city council of what is our intention in how we communicate with the public, understanding that there's all sorts of really wonky technical rules that the state gives us on when we have to do certain things, how we have to do certain things, and that's why right at the top here I put in brackets just a suggestion, that we need to have a need for flexibility and discretion still needs to remain somewhat with the staff and the department heads to determine where those legal requirements are, because we can't really dictate on those on the ground decisions of does this meet the legal definition or not. That's more of a point by point thing for departments to work with the city attorney on determining what is those legal requirements. But really just kind of more of a
Opening the dialogue.
yeah, and see are there things that are still maintaining that legal requirement that we do, but also is there a better way that we can communicate some things?
Yeah, planning department had comments in here, and I respect that, Pete, but the public is really asking for us to make something happen here, to have a better communication system, and Allison brings out some great points about you have to drill down into the website, and Allison is here this evening, and you really have to drill down into that website. You almost have to know where you're going to get there, and that's not the point. The point is that we have to be out there and up front so people can understand, because when they understand, then they can ask better questions and they can help us as their representatives make better decisions. So an informed public informs us to make good decisions. I think this is vital to how we function as a democracy and as a city.
So Brandon next, and then we'll do Nathan again.
Yeah, so I appreciate, I fully support any kind of good information and the right kind of information that we can give residents. I think it's really important for us to ask residents, what is it that you are looking for? It's really easy for us to tell folks, here's what we think is good for you. But if folks are saying, well, this is where our confusion lies, here's where we feel like there's an information void, then we need to respond appropriately in that case. So I've even told Pete recently that there are some instances on our website where I don't think it would be prudent to spend too much time trying to fix things that are an issue with our current platform, idiosyncrasies in our platform, because we are getting this new website. But the website's still a medium. I mean, we can put information on that website, even a new one, and it doesn't satisfy what some of the residents are asking for. And one of the big ones that's listed here, and I appreciate that, is the proposed development projects. I feel like if we put more information, more complete information early after an application is received, that actually, we can do that and even tag that as a quasi-judicial type action. I mean, it makes it so everybody knows, including ourselves, that here's something that's going to come down the pipeline. So if somebody ends up approaching us, we can let them know. I mean, we know it, it's there, and we can advise them that this is quasi-judicial, right? But we are giving you all the information here so that misinformation or rumor or whatever doesn't creep in. That certainly helps us to not overstep any kind of bounds and end up with a legal issue. So I would strongly support any of the proposed development having more information out there. And I do think it's prudent to say not all 700 permit applications need to be included with all the info. most of those residents aren't going to care about. But if there is going to be a public hearing on something, then I would say that it reasons to believe that those issues could potentially be ones that they would care about because they would either positively or adversely affect them. And so maybe, I don't know what that number is, but maybe that winnows that down quite a bit and makes it doable. I mean, either way, I don't want staff time spent putting out fires either and trying to deal with misinformation that might be out there. So I do believe that this is a really respectful way to do business in this case, and it helps developers too, because developers are battling with misinformation sometimes that just comes in there because it fills a void. So I like this, and certainly have been talking about this proposed development for a while. These kinds of bits of information I think are vital.
There's some developers in some communities that actually try and hold community meetings ahead of time.
Sure.
So here's what we're proposing, here's what we're going through, and take your input. And that also is done, that's on the developer's side, they can do that. I know when we did the airport project, of course, that's by mandate, by federal law and everything else, but we had a full meeting ahead of time. Here's what the proposal is, here's where the land's going to be affected and all that, which meant every farmer knows that, hey, I might have a chance to retire early because the airport may be buying my property, whatever. So Nathan, you're the next one.
Roy will never retire.
So, I do think it's a good step. I mean, there's been some questions about transparency and so on. But I do feel we need to keep in mind that while us as citizens, all of us as citizens, have gotten used to I want the information right now, give it to me Twitter speed, give it to me, right in front of my face, right away. The challenge is that many of our departments are, smaller, they have limited time, and it's important to be transparent, but we also have to balance what are the staff hours going to be in that? What's it going to cost the city, which ultimately will cost the citizens, and being able to provide that information in a balanced way. And sometimes that means going through legal, and that means that maybe that communication won't go out, that day. Maybe it'll be a couple days before it's vetted, before we see these things coming out. So there is a balance, there is a challenge, and one of the projects I worked on in my graduate degree was looking at electronic governance across all of Washington State. And how does information get out via the website? In comparison to many cities in Washington, I'm not talking about others, but in Washington, we're actually relatively good with getting the information out. The website is, of course, going through a redesign, and so that's important. And yeah, sometimes you do need to dig for some of the information. But that's typical for many government entities. There's a lot of information trying to get out to people. And I see that we, as a council, can do that research for ourselves and say, okay, you know what? Yes, I don't want you to dig for it, So let me dig for it. Let me send you the link to where you can find it. Let me do the information. And that can be kind of a conduit towards finding how to better communicate as well. Now, as we get our website together more, that will provide, a better access. But at this time, we've got to find ways that we can help in that way. And sometimes that will fall on council to say, I will dig through the site and see where these things go. So I think it's a good start, good document, but again, there's some patience that needs to be communicated.
So yeah. So Nathan, I don't know if you're talking about the new site that's going to roll out or the current site. I just
current site right now.
Okay, well, sure, the current site right now poses problems, but if we know that there's something buried in the site, rather than fix it, are you suggesting that that we would go and find that and communicate with those 20 different people rather than fix the issue and let them be able to find that information themselves. I mean, that seems more logical.
No, I'm talking about right now that we're going through.
The current
this.
site.
The current site. Now, I mean, even with a new site, you're going to have some material. It's not all going to be on page one. You know, I mean, you're not going to be able to do that.
Well, the search functions I know on the new site are going to be more robust and easier to find that.
Yeah.
And we can also have on the news site, obviously, topics that are hot. We can certainly have it on the front page. Now, Laura, I've been seeing you having some chat as this conversation's going on, so I appreciate some input from you tonight, too.
Yeah.
So I understand and appreciate the desire for more communication to the public. I guess what I am hearing as you have discussed it is getting into the administrative and operational detail of perhaps how things are posted on the website, which I would be hard-pressed to classify as legislative. I think the city council can certainly set a policy of you want to be a city that engages in more public outreach than what the minimum is that's required by law. But I certainly wouldn't think that you would go any further than that type of a policy statement, and you would then leave it to the mayor and the administration to implement that policy. Because if you were to legislate specific requirements for where things are posted on a website, or the terms that are used so that intuitive search brings it up immediately, what you are doing is you're providing additional challenges to future approvals of actions that you've required, that legislatively required specific additional notices for. So you have the mandated notices under state law for land use actions, for example. But you can certainly ask the staff or adopt a council goal that says we intend to be as transparent and outward-facing as possible, and we encourage staff within the budgeted resources that you've provided them. We encourage staff to provide additional public notice beyond that which is required by state law or federal law if it's a federally funded project. Your transit system goes through different public notice requirements and public hearing requirements than other departments because of the fact that it receives federal funds. Okay. So, I mean, it just, I would not want you to legislate this, and one, because it's not your role, and two, because it creates challenges.
Right, and I'm not attempting to legislate. What I'm attempting to do is say, here's a concern that I'm hearing from residents, and
how can we address it with
Absolutely.
Absolutely, because I'm also cognizant that because of the Public Records Act, people are requesting these documents, and we're having staff time spent on that anyway.
Absolutely.
So, you know,
But I think the council action is then to ask the mayor and the city administrator to take administrative actions to increase the amount of publicity on all city actions, rather than getting into the nitty-gritty of how does the administration actually do that. Right. That's not a city council's role.
We've already seen a lot more communication from departments, public hearings. I mean, it is being...
Everything's a work in progress, and we're making more progress on it. Eileen?
Thank you for summarizing that, Laura. I think we do have a sense of the body that's where we're headed. So we can all nod and smile and say we have a sense of the body here. And also, I guess sort of the elephant in the room is, when is the new website going to roll out?
Is it January 5th?
It should be by the end of the year.
End of the year?
By the end of the year.
Really? Great. That's
And
fantastic.
next month is November, so it's getting close.
Yeah.
The goal is to have it done earlier than that, and maybe as early November. But I would measure that the end of the year is when we're
Okay.
going to have it
So
out.
we'll-
And you might mention that we've already had a number of training sessions for staff, and Dee's been very
Yeah, the
involved
website's
with
being
that.
built
Joanne's
already.
been involved with that.
They're filling in web pages and creating the content onto those new pages already.
Yeah, but for the sake of the public, I want to make sure we got that out there.
End of the year
Yeah.
is the goal.
Well,
Yeah.
both Councilmember Chapman and myself have, helped in the early parts of that, and so I think we're both excited to see that come out as well.
I think there were 5 or 6 companies that we said, here's everything we want, and it was pretty full of requirements, and these companies were all really good.
And you had some good comments on how to bring that forward, so, yeah.
So for Ann and Dan, who've done a great job with this, if you have other suggestions, I assume you're open to have somebody send emails or whatever else tonight, or just...
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think really just wanted to kick off a discussion and kind of pull
Right.
together what some of the feedback we've been seeing come in and feedback from staff. And I want to call attention to kind of some of Joanna's feedback on the library and
Yeah.
utilizing the library
Yes.
for kind of some of those publicly available documents and the willingness of the library to kind of foster that as a community resource.
Which is always the source of great information. We all know that.
Education hub.
Yes, it is. Gathering spot for the entire community. I can think of all the other lines that they've used. Okay. Thank you for that discussion. The last item for discussion tonight is the Uniform Code of Abatement of Dangerous Buildings, and we start with our city attorney, Laura.
Thank you, Mayor. At the last council meeting, Councilmember Records requested that my office prepare a legal memo for you that summarizes the extent of the city's authority to engage in nuisance actions and abatements of nuisances in the city. And then I understand at the council workshop, goal-setting workshop, that there were also a discussion and questions about some additional issues. So what I would like to hear from you tonight is, and get direction from you, is what additional issues would you like me to address so that we can bring it all back in a single presentation to you?
Because there was a discussion at one time when we were talking about businesses, buildings downtown, and then that discussion also got to residences too. So I just want to make sure where she needs clarification, so. Open. Eileen?
Later this afternoon, I did send to Laura, and I'm a notebook I got to everybody, sent some code from the city of Everett that specifically talks about vacant buildings in a downtown, and what can and cannot, and what can be, well, what they're doing. I don't know what can and can't, but what they're doing. So, and I don't know if this is just a single example that, because I know somebody sent this to me. And
It is on the MRSC website.
Okay.
And it is, I've actually already reached out to Everett to find out what the conditions were that triggered it. I've got,
Was that when they did a big renovation downtown? 'Cause I was at
It
the
actually-
city hall where they rebuilt the downtown, they had
They did.
some declaration of,
they did,
Yeah.
and my plan is to provide you more information when I give the report, but this was an action they took during the recession. To
2009,
deal
I think
with,
it stated.
yeah,
Yeah.
to deal with blight in downtown and the significant number of vacant buildings that they had downtown. So it was.
and they built a new city hall downtown too. So I've
And,
been in
yeah,
that building.
they took a number of actions, not just the vacant building language.
So other suggestions for Laura so she can get material back to you? Yes?
I think if we're talking about vacant buildings, I don't think we should just limit it to downtown. I think it should be at least all commercial buildings, whether they're in the central business district or not. And I think even residential could be included, but I don't know what we want the scope of that to be right now. But we have problems in residential neighborhoods too. So if we're going to do it, maybe we should look at all buildings or, I'm not sure.
And my plan is to bring you back with an overview on these topics, so not bring any proposed legislative changes or anything like that, so that give you a briefing on what the options are, and then you can take that, you can decide whether you want some public input on it, you can decide how you want to proceed from that point in
There
time.
was a discussion, too, about there are some communities that have found ways in which there were additional taxes on empty buildings that were left for a certain period.
Your copy. Your copy.
No, that's right, okay, but anyway, that would be also useful.
Yes.
Yeah, and
No, right.
part of what I will address in there is the difference between a tax and a regulatory fee.
Okay, right,
And that fine line that you have to walk.
yes. Regulatory fee, okay. Nathan?
So my question is, if we're extending it out to residential, of course, we have a transient population that isn't here during summer, students, and, I mean, how's that going to hit those? So I'm not saying anything regarding, I'm mulling over all of these different things that we're looking at, and, if someone is developing a vacant downtown building, would that come under the purview of vacant, but
Your
also
copy.
being developed? In any case, so that's kind of the definition of vacant,
Right.
different definitions.
Or unoccupied.
Yeah.
Two different definitions.
The priority, from what I was hearing from the discussion, was generally commercial buildings.
Downtown.
And it was downtown.
Well, it dovetails with our downtown master plan and all
Correct.
that, yeah.
So maybe focus on that first before you start broadening things out for,
I was just thinking
yeah.
of
Eventually.
Grand Avenue on either side of
There's a certain
downtown.
grain elevator down there that,
There are
Be empty.
empty buildings.
Yes.
So, but
The overview can certainly be of, here are the options.
Yes.
Here are what other jurisdictions are doing, and then in terms of whether you want to focus on a specific area, whether you want to focus on a specific type of use, that would be part of your discussion, I would think, but then you would have all of the information.
does that sound agreeable?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay,
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
all right. With that, we now move to item G. Is there any new business to come before the council tonight? And when you bring new business, please know that you identify yourself for the record. You also sign the book, and you have a 3-minute time limit. You don't have to sign right now. You can sign later when you're all done.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for signing. We appreciate that. And I know Dee does too, and so does others.
I forgot last time.
Okay.
Allison Harris, and I don't really have new business, but I thought this was my only chance to speak, so I wanted to thank council and staff for the response to the letter I wrote, and I just was really impressed with the how quickly people responded to the concerns and the suggestions I offered, and I thought it was great. One thing I want to add in there is that a concern that I see with people is they don't really understand the city process because they're not city people. And so when certain things come up, not only do they want to, like, what's determination of non-significance mean? And is this my last chance to give public input? And is there anything after this? And what's the Board of Adjustment? And all of this process that they don't understand. So they might not know that there's going to be future opportunities to speak, or that there is going to be a public hearing, and when will that be? And so there's just the whole process being laid out to them might be helpful too, and maybe timeline
And
of that.
sometimes on the public hearings, there will be a public hearing, but the date hasn't been set yet.
Yes,
Those kind
that's
of things
right.
that happen,
So it
too.
will be at
And
some
when
point,
does
it's
that happen?
estimated to be somewhere else. And both Pete and Kevin have been great at answering my questions when I don't know what something means. And then the last thing is also when the final determination of non-significance comes out with conditions. I had a question about that is, once all those reports that they request or the assessments are done, that they're requesting before the project can go through, who makes the decision on those reports and things that come in? And does that, like, for example, would that be Pete and Kevin say, well, we weren't happy with the traffic analysis that was done, and we don't think that'll be good, so we're going to make the decision to stop it, or are they just going to give that information to whatever board it goes to next and let the board decide? I just wonder what's done with the information in those reports. And then what's the next step?
Pete, do you want to?
Sure.
In almost all cases, when the city requires, for instance, a traffic study, then we would demand that that traffic study be delivered to the city prior to a public hearing on the matter, so that not only staff, but also whatever commission or board is reviewing the matter would also have an opportunity to review that information, and it would be part of the discussion at the public hearing. So that's the normal course of events.
Allison, does that answer?
Yeah, so it sounds like it'll go to the board or the commission then.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So you still have about 1 more minute left if you want to, because we interrupted you, so I just want to make sure you get your full time. Okay.
The other thing is, in the example of the Elevate building, let's say that there was a suggestion that a traffic light be installed at the intersection of Bishop and Johnson Road. Would they require the developer to pay for that traffic light, or is that something the city would still have to pay for?
Now we're getting some legal.
Or is that something that gets figured out later?
It's fact dependent, because you can only require a developer to install public infrastructure that has a direct correlation to the impact of the project.
Okay, so the traffic report.
Traffic analysis would have to support that as a result of this project, if it were built, there will be a need for a traffic signal. And that then, if that's the case, becomes a condition.
Okay.
And may it be that they have to pay some of it, but the city would have to pay some too.
That's helpful
And
information.
so,
Thank you.
generally, when you're talking like the traffic signal on Bishop Boulevard, it's in the neighborhood of about $250,000 to $300,000 for traffic signal intersection.
Probably a little bit north of that.
It keeps going up every time we start talking about it. And they're still talking about the one for Center Street, and that's north of that. Just so you have so we're maybe talking $500,000 for, is that close?
Easily, depending on how complicated the intersection is.
Because that intersection's very complicated with the bridge and everything else. Okay.
Right.
Does that answer?
Yes, thank you. That's really helpful.
Now, Nathan.
Thank you.
Yes.
Allison, thank you so much for coming and asking those questions, because that's what, these are the experts. As council, I think I've talked before, we're kind of a conduit towards that expert information. And that's why when we get emails, we get phone calls, we see you on the street, any citizen, we should be the ones saying, you know what? I don't know about traffic lights, but Kevin, he can help you out.
I'm very happy to hear that both Kevin and Pete have gotten back.
Yeah.
they've been great.
So that's really our role. So I appreciate you coming and asking these questions, of the experts.
Thank you. I
you.
appreciate the time.
Anyone else bringing new business before us tonight? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?